Dr. Joseph Chalil is author and publisher of the Universal News Network, former chairman of the Indo-American Press Club from Florida. I'd like your thoughts, of course, on the subject overall, but just to give you a thought here, Al Jazeera was the biggest defender of the terrorist act by the Hamas.
Yep.
Directly or indirectly, whether Al Jazeera accepts it, when the rapes happened, when the kidnappings happened, when the brutality happened, when the massacre of thousands of Israelis happened, Al Jazeera went out to highlight what it called, quote unquote, the rightful cause of the Hamas.
Root cause.
The rightful cause of the Hamas. They did documentaries to explain why, what went behind the massacre that the Hamas carried out. They are the ones who are now calling the Ram Temple controversial. So I believe we need to show a mirror to these people. That's my thought. Dr. Chalil, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Arnab, and thank you, Abhishek. Again, I have a different perspective on this because, for the past 12 years or so, I've been running an American media here. And I'm very familiar with the anti-India sentiment. It may not be an anti-India sentiment. It might be I would call it the MDS, a Modi derangement syndrome, which exists, which is a fact, especially in the mainstream media in America. Number two is the acts of the PR agencies, which are working on behalf of the Chinese and the Pakistanis. They've been investing heavily into putting stories into mainstream media and creating their narrative. Do you imagine the article on the temple consecration was written a day before or day of the consecration? It was prepared months ahead, and then finalized. Yeah. And many of them even had Indian origin reporters on it. So I wouldn't say those are ignorant articles written. These are deliberate notes. I can give you an example. I would say maybe 6 months ago, there was an article on USA Today where I was working on, along with another USA Today reporter, on the prominence of coming up of Vivek Ramaswamy, who was then running for US president. Again, he was a nobody, but the Indian Americans were happily supporting it, and we had a big article written about him and he was proud as being a Hindu. He was proud of his name, his Indian heritage. His dad was an Indian citizen. He still remains Indian citizen. And this article was written. It was submitted. We had a deadline. Everything was ready. In 1,200 to 1,500 words, and then the editors rejected it. Then they came back when they finally published a month later. They brought in 3 additional interviews along with mine, and then made Vivek Ramaswamy look much smaller than it was, and it became a pro-Democrat, a pro-Nikki Haley article. So it's the editors who change things. There's multiple problems at play here. It is definitely not ignorance. It is the work of I would say the kingdom funds and the Middle Eastern investment into the news media. The Chinese PR media is doing it, and I have several solutions to make it happen. So Modi derangement syndrome is real. People have been, in fact, I've been facing it in my own press club, and I was the chairman of press club last year. I would say many of the even Indian origin journalists in Indo-American media were anti-Modi. It's because many of them it's very similar sentiment to the communist journalist from India. If you read a newspaper in let's say coming from Kerala or somewhere else, you would have a similar outlook about what's happening in India. They don't see India where it is today. They see India where it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, and they're stuck in that narrative. They don't accept the prime minister as a champion of a world leader. They think he is just an RSS leader. That is not the case. So again, when you have time, happy to give you some solutions for it. We need to counteract and fighting it and arguing it will not solve it.
No, I think this. No. I find your thoughts very interesting, and you've added a new perspective to the debate.